Today we're going to be talking about your watercolor botanical paintings and how to get started on your design. So I have printed out some pictures, some reference photos for myself. You can also look at these pictures online. You can choose any flower that you would like. What I would like you to think about is maybe some different angles of flowers, different sized flowers, and different shaped flowers. So I've chosen an iris, this is a daisy, and then in the middle, this is my birth month flower, which is a marigold. So I've chosen these three flowers, and this is what I'm gonna kind of roll with for my project. In addition to my photos, I also have a pink eraser in case I make mistakes. I have my pencil, obviously, and I have oil pastels, okay? Same oil pastels I used for our previous unit. So the other thing that I have done is I have started planning out my composition in my sketchbook. And my composition is basically how I want to arrange my flowers on the page. What I've thought about is where those flowers overlap. I've thought about the heights of the flowers, whether they crop off or go off the edge of the page. So these are all things that I've considered as I started planning my composition. You guys can see that there is a lot of mistakes on this piece of paper. There are a lot. If I pull it closer, you can probably see all of my eraser marks, all of my extra pencil markings. That is okay because it's just a sketch, okay? So what I'm gonna do is I'm gonna grab this is my Bristol board paper, so I have it cut to 12 inches by 16 inches, but I want you guys using whatever you have on hand at home, okay? I'm going to start sketching out some of my flowers, and I'm gonna have my sketchbook on the side so I can kind of place and figure out where I want my flowers to go. So I know I want an iris up here, and I want an iris over here as well. Over here, I'm gonna be putting one of my marigolds. I had a daisy here. Because the paper's so big though, I think I'm gonna put another daisy over here as well. And just to start, I'm going to have 6 flowers, okay? For this project, you're gonna be required to include at least 6 flowers. So 6, okay? And you need to have at least 3 different types of flowers. So my 3 types, and I could do more, iris, marigold, daisy, okay? So those are your requirements. At least 6 flowers, at least 3 different types. So I'm gonna start with my iris, and when I'm sketching this, I'm looking at my reference photo. I'm not tracing anything. I'm kind of guesstimating, and I'm making mistakes along the way. This is gonna get cropped off. Give your piece room to breathe. If you try to fit everything into one drawing and you try to squeeze it in, like if I tried to fit this flower petal in, and it can't, it's too big. You've gotta let it go off the edge of the page, give it some room to breathe. All right, so now I'm going to adjust this because I didn't make it wide enough. Flowers are very organic, and the nice thing about that, because they're such organic shapes, is that you can make mistakes and it will not really be obvious because they're kind of so messy looking, those lines, that it's fine. Usually I'll put on some good music while I'm doing this. That's gonna go off the edge of the page. And as I'm doing this, I'm also paying attention to something called proportions, which means sizes. So for example, I can see that the petal right here on this flower is much smaller in proportion to these two. I can see where maybe certain petals are closer to one another or far apart from one another, so there's space between some of them. I have made this a little bit too small. And I hope you guys are recognizing too that I am fixing my mistakes before I erase them. So now that I've fixed that mistake, I'm gonna erase these kind of extra lines because I don't need them anymore and I don't want them to confuse me. So now I can start working on this bottom petal. This is gonna be a very big iris. Okay, see how I just drew over my mistake? I'll erase the lines I don't need. And if you really look closely at flowers, you can also see some of the folds that are in them. They're really beautiful. Okay, I'm almost done with this one. This I can definitely make a little bit bigger. Fixed my mistake. Then I erase. And last but not least, the last petal, make that a little wider too. My last petal is right here, okay? Now, a cool way to kind of work around some of these challenges of like trying to draw out the same flower so many different times, it's a little bit too wide. There is a solution to making sure that you do not have to draw the same flower over and over again. And the solution to that, it's looking pretty good. I'm pretty happy with that. The solution to that is a stencil. So I'm going to show you guys what I did. This is kind of my cheating move, but it's not really cheating if I drew it myself, right? So on a separate piece of Bristol board paper, I drew out 2 of my flowers. So I drew out a daisy, I drew out a marigold, okay? And I simply just cut it out. And since this Bristol board paper is so thick, you could do this with other paper too, but the nice thing about it is that now I can kind of angle and play around with my stencil, and I can change the angle that my flower is drawn from. And even though right now I'm only working with an outline, and that can be a little overwhelming at first, a little bit like, oh my gosh, what did I just do? I can keep this stencil next to me now, and I can kind of use that to help me start adding the details. Is it gonna look exactly like the stencil? Maybe not, and that's okay, because remember, the flowers are organic, so we can kind of mess around with how we draw the petals in, how we draw all of the shapes in. So you can see I'm starting to add my petals. I am going to show you guys, like if I was drawing a daisy going off the edge of the page, I could draw that right here. And then look, I can also then angle it. I think it might be kind of pretty to have one angled this way. So that is how I start drawing my flowers out. Okay, I appreciate you guys taking the time to watch the video. I would include my stems in this, so I could sketch those in. Again, this is a work in progress, so I might change things along the way. I might decide that I don't want a flower here. I might want to erase something. I might want to add something additional. But definitely think about overlapping, cropping, how high the flowers are. All of those different things go into the decisions that we make as an artist. From there, I am going to use my oil pastels, and that will be coming up in a separate video, okay?